competitiveness start to hit you as this swimming can take me somewhere? Was that when you started doing these individual races at 9 years old, or did it come a bit older when I'm actually in a competition now?
No, it actually took quite a long time, because even up to when I was 11, 12, I actually was pretty terrible. I wasn't good at swimming at all. And I think I was just still trying to figure out, with cerebral palsy, it's really hard to plan a movement. So for example, that, I've got to move my arm in this certain way to get a swimming stroke, but actually being able to plan it in your brain of how exactly it needs to move is really difficult. And for me, if I can't see where my arms are, I have no idea what they're doing. So it took me quite a few years to learn certain things, like tumble turns. And I was talking to my mum about this the other day, because I don't think it'd be allowed now, but the only way that I learnt to turn is that the coach was in the water with me and literally forced my head underwater and pulled my body into a turn position multiple times until my body learned what it is to be in that position, how to get into it.
Okay.
And I don't think I'd have learned otherwise, but yeah, I don't think nowadays you'd be able to physically manhandle a kid to get them to tumble turn.
You say that, but at the same time, it's a way you could look at that. 'Cause you look at that as really good coaching of understanding your athlete, of going, I know that she has cerebral palsy. I know that this affects her. I suppose the brain wave to the muscle, because like you said, you need to see your arm to physically feel like you're in control of it. But then, like you said, yeah, convincing somebody that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing when you jump into a pool with a 9-year-old and start dunking them is probably a tough sale.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, if we ever struggle, we'll just go through your medal history, and then that might save the coach a bit of trouble. It'd be like, it works. There's case in point, it works now. I love hearing these stories, and then especially when you talk about cerebral palsy and how it affects your arms. So was that something you really had to then learn as like a muscle memory point? Because like you say, it affects I'm trying to make sure I do your words justice of how to explain this, so I'm not misrepresenting it. But you have that thought of, it's kind of so like a person like myself, I just think I want to pick up, for example, this glass of water here. I don't really have to think about it. I just kind of do it. Mm-hmm. Do you have to do a sort of like forced effort for that, as in I want to pick up that and I need to think about doing it? Or
yeah, I do. It's not as bad on my right side, but especially my left side. It's kind of like the messages from the brain get kind of mixed up. They don't fully, they get there, but they get there a bit slower, and it's not the full message. So it's the movement isn't as good, so it's a bit shaky or like not quite coordinated.
It's so I love hearing when people come through these sort of adversities and really hone their skill. And then, like I say, you're now, well, I counted at least 25 medals in the first 20 minutes of doing the research for you. So I kind of stopped after that. I thought, I'm going to run out of pages, and like, this is a thick notebook. And then obviously, like, there's a lot of I ran out of pages for the notes, but there we go. Yes, the swimming came through you to. Let's talk about age 14, because that was your first international competition in 2011. That was Berlin, I believe.
Yeah, so that was only about a year after getting classified for the first time. So I went for classification at 13, because like at first we kind of knew of parasport and paraswimming, but I didn't know if I was eligible for it, and I didn't know how to get into it. And then we learned that generally, like, each area has like a disability squad. So West Midlands had one that met once a month, so I started going to them, and then I was able to get classified. And yeah, it was kind of crazy. At my first competition after getting classified, I was approached by it was a British swimming coach at the time, who's now actually our head coach. I've known him all these years. And he kind of approached me, and I got put on the talent program. And then I think this is the only time they've ever done that, is that year they had an athlete on podium potential. So there's like 3 tiers. It's called something different now, but back then it was the bottom tier was talent, and then it was podium potential and podium. So I was put on the talent program, and there was an athlete on the podium potential program, and they decided to move mid-year, like mid-season, which is never heard of, move him up to podium. So they moved me from talent into his spot on podium potential, which meant that I was then selected for the German Open in Berlin.
Oh, wow. So these 3 titles that you say they've now changed now, is that sort of, does that dictate how much attention you sort of get as well, in terms of where we want to send you and how we want to sort of marshal you? Because I imagine a head coach or this British swim coach you had that's now head coach has a lot of sort of people he needs to sort of kind of profile, I suppose, is probably the best way to say about that.
The
So when
what
okay,
was talent is like a para academy now, and it's generally like the under 18s, like the younger ones, trying to get them into it and trying to kind of. So for the ones at the minute in the para academy, they're not really focused on Paris; they're focused on LA. So they're not focused on the next games; they're the ones after because they're quite young and they need they still need a lot of work and a lot of skills and learning how to be at international events and like, all the nutrition stuff and everything they need to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so interesting. I love hearing about how I've been saying I love hearing about this. I think that shows my excitement for this because I love it when I get a topic. I love it when I get a topic of something I know relatively little about. Because one, I get to ask really silly questions and I'll be like, "So swimming, what is that?" And then, but it's so interesting hearing about how all these behind the scenes things come about. And like you say, you get chucked in these programs. So how did it feel when you got put onto Podium Potential? Because I assume when they how did they sort of not sell it to you, but how did they explain it to you when they took you in and said, "We've seen your classification, we've seen how you swim, we believe there's talent here. This is the project we want to put you on," and then moving you up? How did that call go?
To be honest, it's so long I can't remember, but I think we got a phone call and then an email. But I was just really excited, like getting to go to Berlin. I was just super excited, like the first time like away from my family, like on my own, getting to race in a foreign country. And then I turned up at Berlin, and surprise, surprise, my mum had flown without telling me, and she was in Berlin to watch me. And I was like, "Mum, this is like my first thing where I'm like on my own, and you've turned up to Berlin."
That's good support. You can't moan at your mum for flying to Berlin.
No, that's true. But I was like, like I was one of the youngest. There was a 13-year-old and then me who just turned 14 like the week before. And we were like the youngest on the team. So I was like, trying to act cool and like not be the young kid that's got their mum with them.
Was your mum? So did your mum join? I think your mum was just there as a spectator. Like she wasn't.
Yeah, like they're not allowed. Like they're not allowed in the same flights. They're not allowed in the same hotel. So they're not really allowed to come and see you. So the way that the pool's really cool in Berlin. It's actually one of my favourites. Sheffield's always gonna be my absolute favourite at Ponds Forge.
Sheffield's home, but Berlin's a favourite. Yeah.
But Berlin's like a really nice pool, and the way that like the upstairs is that all the swimmers are on one side and all the spectators are on one side in the stands, but you can walk like across. So I could just go over and see her, but I didn't like. So I could see her, but I just chose to stay with the team.
Played it cool, yeah. Played it cool. You're young and with your friends. Like you're on a holiday, like a very serious one, but you're on a holiday. So
I think like that was back then. I didn't really realize how serious it was. Like I didn't think of it. Like I know over the years, a lot of people have been like, "Well, this is your job. You get paid for it," and that's quite a hard thing to concept, especially at 14. That you're paid to be an athlete, like this professional, supposedly professional athlete, but you're still a kid, and that was kind of difficult for me. And at that point, like obviously I loved it, like getting the kit, that was my first time getting like actual race suits because race suit they're more expensive now, but even then I think they were £200. So like we were never going to buy them because I didn't need them. But obviously when you race internationally, you're expected to, they're supplied for you. So it was the first time getting like proper fast skin racing suits and like a hat with my name on, all this like, so obviously it was really exciting. But it hadn't really sunk in like how big this actually was.
You said there that you were getting paid. So was this? I think you're on the GB Paralympic sort of athlete program then at this point. Yeah.
The one like the talent program, like it's not talent. That was when I was on Podium Potential actually. So they've got different tiers, and I think I don't know if the Para Academy is still the same, but before when it was talent, it was like £500 a year. So it was just to pay for like one or two costumes or like bags and goggles and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then when you're on Podium goes from, it's kind of changed over the years, but I think at the minute there's A plus down to C, and then it should be I think D to like F on Podium Potential. So basically, when you're in that program, there's not only that one program that like classifies you, but it's also there's a classification system on how much you actually earn. So how much you get depending on how quick you are. So it's generally based off world rankings. So like it might be world number one plus a certain percent will get you into whatever category. But like for A plus, you have to be like the gold medalist that season. So like if you like for example for me, like when I went to Worlds and won, that means you're on the highest level of funding. If you get silver, you might be on B. If you get a bronze, you might be on C. So it does change kind of every year sometimes, but basically how well you perform and what ranking in the world is depends on how much money you get funding wise from Lottery Fund.
Oh, okay. So it's a performance-based aspect type thing.
Yeah.
And then like you say, when you were there at 14, although you were technically getting money, it's not like you're not getting a living wage type thing. You're getting
not at that point.
Sort of like you're getting like your expenses covered almost to an extent.
Yeah, it's almost enough to cover stuff that your parents would usually be forking out for.
God bless the bank of mum and dad. That's one consistent thing I've noticed with every podcast. Bank of mum and dad has had to get used to buy some kit.
Especially like I know for a long time my brother was quite envious, and he still says that I'm the favourite child. Like, one being disabled and two being the younger one meant that
there's no way your brother plays the disabled card on you.
He does all the time, and like but like I do need more support than him, and because when we got to the age where we were at different clubs and he started playing water polo and we had to be at different pools, like I was on the outskirts of Birmingham, he was like the other side of Birmingham, and my mum was like, I can't be in two places at once, so he would have to get lifts for people or get the train or get the bus, and he got really annoyed about that he had to become really independent and do a lot of stuff on his own, because my mum was with me like almost 24 hours a day. Like, she would take me to morning training and we get back at like 7:30. She'd then go to work all day, get home, have a quick dinner, and then go to the pool, and we'd be back at like 10 p.m. and then repeat it again. So, and being a single parent, like, my brother didn't really get much attention, so he definitely did hold it against me quite a lot. And obviously it was a lot for him to give up. But again, like my mum, I mean, he got stuff he needed, like for his sports that he did, but I think because I needed a bit more and more attention and support, I think for him it seemed like I got a lot more attention and more items and more things.
Yeah, it must be tough as like a kid as well, because like you don't get the understanding you sort of get as you grow up type thing.
Yeah.
You want everything to be like a level playing field. So
yeah,
poor guy, bless him. But yeah, I can understand having to get the bus to the other side of Birmingham, and you're like, oh, just once I just like a lift, and I could have an extra 20 minutes in bed or something.
Yeah. My brother's very late. That's why he didn't commit to swimming and water polo. Like, it was a very good swimmer and an excellent water polo player, but he's just not like me. Like, he really wants to achieve the results and he wants to play. He just doesn't want to train. He doesn't want to put in the effort, and he admits to that he's lazy. He doesn't want to put in the effort, and he was never going to make it because he just refused to train.
Poor guy. I know how he feels, to be fair. There's many a day I've woken up on a Monday morning and thought, I'll just stay in bed today. So I relate to him probably more than I relate to you in terms of commitment and dedication. So I'm on the brother's side here. Not pulling out the disabled card on you. That one he's firmly in his own bracket there. But other than that, I'm having so much fun. This is amazing. Hey, thank you for listening to this Clips episode on YouTube. And then if you want to hear the whole podcast, you can find them on Apple or Spotify, as well as the full video version on this YouTube channel, alongside all the other great content we produce on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you again on another Clips episode or in the full episode podcast. Tweet us, tag us, let us know what you thought. All the links are down in the description. It means the world that you guys come and support us, so thank you very much.